They say life is what you make it. So what happens if you actually try? What if you actually tried to get your mind right? What if you actually tried to live the high life? What if you happen to die cause life is finite? What if you actually tried to live your best day ever? What if you actually tried to get your mind right? What if you actually tried to live the high life? What if you happen to die cause life is finite? What if you actually tried to live your best day ever? What if you actually grind out when the time's right? What if you actually blinded by your hindsight? What if you actually find out what defines life? What if you actually tried to live your best day ever? I'm getting 1% better every day. I'm getting 1% better every way. I'm waking up every day to a sunny day. No matter what the weather say, life is like a record, so just let it play.
All right. Well, we're back, or at least I should say I'm back. I think Adam just stepped away for a second from the computer, but as he mentioned or teased in the previous half of the show, we're going to be jumping in and talking everything Halloween. So we'll be sharing with you guys our favorite Halloween movies, our favorite Halloween stories or costumes or anything like that. Were you getting props, Adam?
No, I wish. I was trying to find my dog. She kind of disappeared. I got a little bit worried there because our back door stays a little bit open for the cat. I was a little worried she might have pieced out, but she was sleeping under the covers in my bed. So spooky stuff. But yeah, I don't know.
All right. Well, I thought full transparency here, guys. I feel like we're less prepared for this Friday show than most of our shows, and certainly than previous Friday shows. But anyways, I thought it'd still be fun just to kind of chat and hang out with you guys. So we'd love to hear what's your favorite like scary movie, horror movie, or Halloween centric movie. Do you have a particular costume that you remember or Halloween experience? I think that's what we'll really talk about or share here. So, Adam, is there like one horror film or like scary movie that stands out for you?
Yeah, so I was so my mom was working quite a bit when I was a kid, right? She was she used to work these shifts. They call them the hell do they call it? Continental shifts. So she would like go on these weird rotations that were seemingly random to me at the time as a kid, but like these like 12-hour shifts that would like randomly alternate. And so I had a decent amount of time spent with babysitters, and my one babysitter, her name was Melissa. I'll never forget her. But her thing, we had this agreement that I would get there, but I would say nothing about it. And we would watch like the scariest shit together. And it was kind of cool because we had this kind of unspoken agreement that she would always show up with like a really cool, scary movie. So for us, I think one of the things we got really deep into was Friday the 13th. And we would constantly watch those films because there's actually a bunch of them. I'm not sure how many there are, but that was our thing. We'd watch that, and then we'd watch like Nightmare on Elm Street. We were watching all of these like crazy classic scary movies, and I will literally never forget because I used to do like I was always at our hunt camp too with my grandpa. So I just will never forget like Friday the 13th was so creepy because it was like kind of set at like a cabin out in the woods, and there was like these teenagers that were all there, and then Freddy of course comes out in his hockey mask and he's got his like chainsaw and all this like scary stuff, and he's just impossible to kill. And I think the scene that stands out most to me is like when he's in the maybe that's Halloween, I can't remember, but like the one of the scary movies like around that era has like him in the sheets that are like blowing around in the wind as I think it's like the mom or whatever's hanging her clothes on the line in the backyard, and he's just like standing there staring, and I was like, oh damn, that's so creepy. And like that particular scene has stuck out for so long. I remember it was a white face. I just can't remember if that's Jason or if that was Halloween. But anyways, like what a crazy scene. Like it's so freaky. Like it's just blowing in the wind and then he's just not there. And it's like one of those like classic cinema tricks where he's there and then the wind blows, the sheet flies up in her face and then he's not there. And she's like, oh, it was probably nothing. But it was definitely something. She gets murdered, right? I'm like, shit, that's so creepy.
Yeah. I don't think I've actually watched too many of those films. And it's not that like I dislike them, but I also just don't seek them out, I guess. So I think I've watched maybe one or two of the Halloweens, like maybe one of the first ones, and then like was there like H2O or something that was like a update version of it? And I don't know if I've seen any of like the Friday the 13th or like the Freddy ones.
Well, the thing about particularly Halloween and the Friday the 13th one, like Nightmare on Elm Street, I believe is a little bit different, but the particularly interesting thing especially at the time too, when you're younger, but also just the era of cinema that we were in. Friday the 13th uses almost I'd have to rewatch it, but I'm gonna say like almost no visual effects at all. Like there may be some fake blood, there may be some whatever, but like they relied heavily on the angles that they were using with the cameras and like sort of that Spielberg, Jaws, Jurassic Park sort of withholding the true like you didn't spend a lot of time seeing all this like violence and gore. It was mostly the suspense of knowing that he was outside the window or that he was in the other room waiting or that he was behind those sheets blowing in the wind. And I think for me, that was what was truly terrifying, especially when you're younger, is like it was so close to what you would regard as reality that it was like completely believable, right? And anything that was where it required you to suspend disbelief, it was a reach that you were able to make, right? Like, oh, you got shot, but maybe he wasn't actually that wounded, right? And he gets away and he heals back up and he's right back there the next summer to kill them all. And like, it was just so believable and so well done because they leveraged the technology that they had without having to rely on like these hardcore visual effects and stuff. And that's to me like what makes those particular movies classics, where I'm sure they were better when I was younger. I haven't watched them in a very long time, but just that sleight of hand, right? The trickery with the lighting or with the camera angles and things like that was so real that it made it like this visceral experience as a kid. And I think that's what like was really cool about it.
I know we don't have a lot of concurrent listeners, but let me know, is it that the audio is cutting out, or is it on Adam's end? Jump in the comments, let us know. But I think I caught most of what you were saying there, Adam. For myself, I think probably the movie that like in that genre of like horror or Halloween oriented stuff that I definitely have watched the most and I would say is my favorite would be Cabin in the Woods. I don't know if you've ever seen that one.
I'm familiar with the title, but I honestly can't remember if I've seen it.
So this is an old movie, or oldish enough that I don't feel like this is a spoiler. Although I imagine it would stand up today. But what I loved about it, it was like it starts off literally like almost an over the top typical horror movie where it's like these five kids, they've got a cabin in the middle of the woods and they're going out to party. And it's like there's like the jock, there's the hot chick, there's the girl, there's like the complete stoner nerd dude, and they show up at the cabin in the woods, and essentially like some creepy things kind of start happening, and like the way in every horror movie it starts out where like the kids don't take it seriously, right, and they're making kind of like light of what should actually be a scary situation. And anyways, long story short, you end up finding out that like this is all actually some sort of like giant elite cabal that owns this cabin in the woods. And depending upon how the kids act, and there's cameras everywhere, and people are betting on like who's going to survive. And it just turns into this fascinating little exploration and really like takes the genre, like flips it on its head to a certain extent, and really uh subverts a lot of the norms by the end of the movie. But essentially it's like, you know, one kid picks up like a enchanted box and like almost opens the lid, and had they opened that, something crazy would have happened. And like guys are literally, you like, it cuts to the behind the scenes of like the guys pulling the strings, and like they're betting huge sums of money, and like literally they've got like boards and betting, and just like it it's fascinating because it's still somehow like a scary horror movie, but there's also these like periods of like extreme levity because like the behind the scenes stuff all feels just so silly or over the top. And then like in any like, you know, well-rounded wrapped with a bow on top sort of production or presentation, the bad guys get their comeuppance by the very end of it as well. So yeah, definitely love that movie, and it's a standout for me in the horror genre.
Well, that's something that hits on a genre of book I used to love reading, which was the sort of choose your own adventure style books.
Yep.
And I've been such a huge fan of those ever since I was a kid. And there was this film actually on Netflix that I think got so close to making something brilliant that it's not even funny that they missed the mark, but they missed the goddamn mark.
Okay.
I
Well, I'm
believe it's
curious because
called, yeah,
I couldn't watch it. Like, I started watching
it was
it, and I
horrible.
actually just didn't like it at all. Like, I
It
think
was horrible.
one or two of like the choose your own adventures, and it's like, which cereal do you want to eat? And like, it ended up like essentially having no difference or whatever. I was just like, eh. And so
But
like, I literally never actually watched it.
so I believe that was called Bandersnatch or something like that,
Yes,
right?
that sounds familiar.
But Matt, like what I was really excited for is had they hit that on the head, how exciting it would have been to elevate cinema in that way, right? Where if you could truly impact the outcomes of the film or of the story and what it would say about you at the end of it, because I believe that was an edition on Black Mirror. And so I had these really high hopes because I was like, oh shit, what if they're actually making a point that they can make me do things through the technology that they're making a joke about, right? Or not even making a joke about, but they're trying to tell us about the pitfalls and the interesting elements of our own technology and our human behavior. And like now they've got me on my couch at home looking like a lazy slob, just attached to my television for 2 hours. And like it was such a fascinating, in my mind, I made it so much cooler than what they were able to execute on. But that is like something that I've always been craving when it comes to television or when it comes to essentially bringing the pages of what are excellent works of fiction onto the theater and onto the big screen. And like I wish they had nailed that for us because they didn't, and it could have been so cool. But yeah. Anyways, choose
Mm-hmm.
your own adventure. Like the idea, the
Yeah,
concept of that is cool.
I feel like most kids, there was an era of that, right? Like, was it the Scholastics books or whatever
Yeah.
would come to your school, and you would like grab a few of those, a few Goosebumps, and whatever else in regards to like that sort of fiction?
Yeah. Yeah. For me, actually, it was this little book series, and I will never, ever, ever forget it, which is crazy. But getting a little off topic here, but it was called Deltora Quest. And these little novellas were maybe, I don't know, 100 or 200 pages, but like you could pick your path through it, and there was like many many books, and it was so goddamn cool. And I ended up obviously reading all the various avenues, but it was just such a fascinating exploration for a young mind that like there wasn't just a beginning, a middle, and an end to any hero's journey. It was like it could take many paths, and there were so many other things. And then that sort of led me down the path of like the Elder Scrolls video games, right? Where there was all those, like there was a main quest, and
Mm-hmm.
then there was like all these sub quests, and you could literally spend days of active playing time just trying to explore the various quests throughout the maps. And I don't think it's even a beatable game because there's so many. But anyways, I've always just loved that. It's too bad we don't see that here in cinema. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
anyways, interesting exploration of choose your own adventure.
And so, like, it sounds like both of us, at least as kids, like read some horror books. Do you read like horror books as an adult? I know for whatever reason it's something that I don't, but I don't even know why I don't. Like, I've never, and I think this is a right framing of it. And again, you guys can correct me, but like I've never read like a Stephen King novel or anything like
What?
that.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's a huge loss for yourself, Matt. I actually read many of Stephen King's books. If you were to attempt to read them all, I think you may still be reading because he was absolutely
Prolific.
prolific. But
Yeah.
at the same time, thinking about a book like Carrie, for example, like we all know the cinema representation of it, and it was great. The film I thought was very good because it captured a lot of the emotion and a lot of the shame and a lot of the guilt and then a lot of the rage, and like it got a lot of that onto the screen. And some of the things like the pig's blood, right, was very evident and very visceral on the film, and in a way that perhaps some people's minds would have been challenged to grasp on the page. But like, fuck, man, those books are good. They're so good. I'm thinking of Carrie was fantastic, right? Shawshank Redemption, fantastic. The Green Mile, epic. But I think the Stephen King book that stands out to me the most was the Dreamcatcher novel. Epic, epic book, and epic film too. Even that film, I think, was very well put together and captured a lot of what was going on in his thoughts at that time. And then finally, I think one of the greatest Stephen King books ever written, which he claims to actually not remember writing, which was I believe it was Misery. He made those claims, but fantastic book. And Pet Cemetery, honestly, was a great one too. Like I read all these as a kid. Like I was up under the blankets because mom would come upstairs, and luckily we had like the shittiest house, so you could hear every step coming. Right, there was probably 30 steps on like a bit of a wind. Like it took a turn, and I could tell the difference between like the middle steps and the landing step that was like the last 3 steps. So I would have to have my lights off because she could see the lights under the door, but I would throw my blanket up and just use like a flashlight and be reading under my blankets. And she hilariously would come up the stairs and be like, Adam, I know you're reading. Like, go to bed. You have to be up for school. And I just lay there silently and try not to make a sound and try to be as try and get my light profile down as much as possible. But she always knew. But yeah, man, I was crushing Stephen King books as a kid.
That's interesting. Yeah, definitely a voracious reader, but it was always like again, outside like the Goosebumps and stuff, for me, it was always like science fiction and fantasy that seemed to capture the bulk of all my reading. Were you guys like a big Halloween family?
Yeah, dude. My mom was really cool because like we didn't have a ton of money, but she always had like a ton of drive to do like the fun stuff. Like, so Halloween was always like this big thing, right? Like she had a ton of like, and even today she has like all the things outside, like not like Christmas Vacation type of decorating, but like she would have like the glowing pumpkins. There would be like little doormat things that like if you stepped on them would give you like sounds and like something would pop out or whatever. Fake cobwebs and spiders and shit through all the shrubs or whatever was out front. Boxwoods, I remember. And for me, like when I was really young, I remember we would always make my costume because like the Halloween stores were like expensive and like it was just it was too much. So we would always make my costumes. And the first one I ever remember was a bumblebee. And I have no idea how we made it. I think it was felt. I think it was felt like sewed together, but it was like I was really young and it was a bumblebee. And I remember making a lion costume. There's a huge gap between remembering those 2 costumes. And then like what I remember next was like grade 7. I did James Bond. So I had like this shitty suit from like, I don't know, probably Value Village or something like that. And like, at the time it was like the coolest thing ever. I had like, my Sony Walkman was like the piece of high tech thing that I was carrying. It was like this yellow Sony Walkman. And like, that was just the coolest shit ever. And like, we kind of like made the microphone like look like a lapel microphone. Like we cut a hole in it and made it look like there was a microphone there where a button should be. And, we did a couple little tricks like that to just make it more of a James Bond style thing. And then I carried my mom's old, mom or stepdad's, like one of these seriously old like Motorola brick phones, and that was like my cool gadget.
Oh, nice.
So I was tricked out for that, and obviously no weapons were allowed at school, so no plastic guns or anything. But when we went trick-or-treating, I believe I had
feel like
a plastic gun.
In my era, you probably would have been able to get away with it. That must have either been like a regional thing or like just
a
like
Catholic school, so I don't think they were down for any
we were too.
Something like that.
Yeah. No, I'd almost bet that you could at our
Yeah,
school.
at least I don't remember. Maybe I was like, I don't remember.
Because like I feel like kids dressed up as cowboys with 6-shooters and stuff like that.
Yeah, or maybe it was like I had to have like the orange thing on the end. I can't remember. It was so long ago, but like,
sure, yeah,
it was a big
just kind
deal.
of
I mean, like
observation.
that was always a thing, right? And like the other thing was we always had like school dances, right? So like you would go to the school dance in your costume. Like that was always a thing at our school. So like, you know, like you kind of wanted to have a cool costume because you were going to go to the cool dance. And then like, that's where the cool people were going to be doing cool people things. So yeah, that was definitely a big deal. How about you? Were you dressed up?
Like, yeah, but like I feel like as a family, we were always the ones that like we had some good intentions, but just never executed too much. So I think probably like as a young child, the most memorable Halloween costume would have been one that we like bought off the shelf that was like Raphael from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles when that was popping, and
Classic.
that probably would have been like I don't know 4 or 5 or 6 somewhere around that age, and then like I guess how long did you stay a trick or treater? Like, did you go up until grade 7, 8? Did you push it past that?
I I don't remember the exact kind of time, but I would say like straight into grade 8 or 9, we were out collecting candy, like as a joke at that point. But at the same time, we'd get dressed up and go out and
Hmm.
drink a pile of beers. I don't know about you, but me and my friends were beginning our stages of partying on the weekend very early. So like grade 7 or 8, we were
See,
having
yeah,
parties on the weekend,
and
drinking
we
beer.
can maybe save this for like another whole discussion, but I think in high school I might be misremembering one time, but I think I only drank once, and that was to
What?
excess. And the reason was like my group of friends, we essentially were straight edge, and that was like our form of protest. Like that was us rebelling to a certain extent because all of our families at least had like one or two heavy drinkers in them, and so like that was almost like the op. I guess actually, yeah, I can think of 2 times now. But yeah, that was it. And like we would go to parties where people were heavily drinking and stuff, but like just it was never of interest, I guess. And then in university, for some reason, all of us went off to different schools and completely flipped
Yeah.
personalities and became heavy drinkers. But um, yeah, I think that I probably went until I think it was grade 7, but it might have been grade 8. But I remember the last year we went trick or treating. Like I grew up on a farm, so you had to drive everywhere, right? So very inefficient candy gathering, but you also got like huge payouts. Like there would be
Yeah.
houses that would have like
Like just
an entire
handfuls.
grab bag of candy, right? And like we'd always give out a whole like a large chocolate bar. And there'd be people that would like
Yeah.
give out supersized chocolate bars and stuff because like my parents would always keep track, and I'm sure they still do. But like at peak, we'd maybe get like when you're a kid and your friends come to trick or treat and stuff like that, we'd maybe get like 40 or 50 trick or treaters. And like I think now that, you know, my like there's not peers that are young, I think like my parents maybe get one or two trick or treaters
Yeah.
now.
Dude, my grandparents are adorable. They live on like the outside of Collingwood, essentially, like the last street of Collingwood. Literally across
Mhm.
the street is Blue Mountain. And every single year they load up on like that trick or treat kind of candy and stuff or whatever. They might get 2 people. But every year they've got the box. They're ready there. So like if it's getting
Yeah.
close to like the end of the night, they'll just be like, "What do you want? Do you want like all this shit? Cuz just take it." And but it was always a competition like in town, we would get a lot, man. There was a lot of kids near where I was living, and like I would easily get like 3 bags of candy, right? Or like 2 or 3 pillowcases of candy, and like that would just be the craziest thing ever. And then there was always like the sorting party after. I don't know if you guys did that, but my mom was hardcore on like making sure because at the time I don't know what the hell people were poisoning things with. Like today it would be
It
fentanyl. At
was
the
actually
time,
all rumors. Like, if you look
was
into
it?
it, I've spent like there's like 1 or 2 edge case scenarios where like someone hid an actual razor blade in an apple or something, but like it's like
It was just
99.9% of the stories are urban legends, but like
yeah,
it's one of those weird things. Like same with this is tangential, but on DGen Friends, people are talking about like needles and ball pits. I'm
yeah.
sure there's 1 or 2 edge case scenarios where that's the case, but like that level of hysteria that comes out from your average parent in regards to it, just like triggers them. But so your mom was going through making sure nothing was like no wrappers, no seals were broken.
It was like a whole thing, but I think it was honestly just as much about like getting to kind of hang out after like the
Sure.
the euphoria of trick
Like
or treating.
decompress. Yeah.
And so that was always actually something I look forward to. And of course, we would like eat some candy at that moment. This actually just brought up a thought. Joe Rogan just had its number 1888, Michael Shermer, and this guy he works his full-time job is to work for a publication called Skeptic, and they actually have a discussion about this type of thing, right? And I think that they got a little bit into the weeds on some JFK stuff, but they had an interesting discussion about like this type of urban legend thing. And one of his thesis in the book that they talk about is just like essentially why we would have evolved to like make that assumption. Like
Sure.
it would be very expensive for us not to
Yeah.
believe that story if it was true, and very inexpensive for us to believe that story whether or not it is true or not. And so like I think that's a really great decision matrix, right? Like sorting through candy, maybe it takes half an hour, but what if that other story was true, right? And I think that's a actually pretty good perspective to take on this type of thing. But yeah, I mean, it was always fun, right? Like dump out all your candy and you're like, oh no, like some sort of healthy thing. You like push that off to this. I always sorted mine by like, you know, my level of favoritism to it. So like
Desirability. Yeah.
Mr. Biggs always went in one pile, right? Or like Coffee Crisp. I was always a huge fan of that. Like Mr.
Yeah.
Big, Coffee Crisp, Mars bars, Snickers, all those were in like the go pile. And then there was like, what were those? Dude,
Like
what
the
were
rockets,
those?
the shitty
Yeah.
candy,
Fuck.
and like
Who was
yeah.
giving rockets out? Like you have to be a bad person. But what were those? And only you are gonna know this. I got you in the right age demographic here. I believe it was a white, red, and blue package, but it was like this, like it was like chocolate, and then inside it's not licorice, but it's like close enough, and they're gross.
I
Or
think
maybe it
I
was
know
a
what you
yellow.
mean, but I wouldn't be able to
Oh,
like.
maybe it was a yellow package, but they're just disgusting. Okay, candy
Yeah.
with.
And I never really liked like the toffee type things either. That
Oh no, I
like
like those
there's
ones.
the dark toffee thing. I can't think of it, but it was like a brown and white wrapper, I think, maybe with some red. Um, Never a fan of that either.
Oh, I like those ones. Like this,
Yeah.
I think they're called, like, I think it's called sponge toffee. I don't know what the hell the actual candy bar was
The
called.
specific brand, yeah. Did you guys have like any? I don't know what made me think of this, but there was something you said. I guess we were talking about like urban legends. Did you guys have like any scary urban legends that like kids would talk about in grade school or high school? Like either was it like the house with the guy and the thing, or you know someone that like lived in the swamp, or
Um, I don't think we had any of that, but one of the things that if you went to my particular school, and I think like other schools from other cities would have done it too, but like my school always did this trip to, it's called Camp Kitschy, and I honestly like thinking about that now, I don't even know where that is. It's probably close to like Honey Harbor or something. Camp Kitschy. I think maybe it's actually called Camp Kitschy Kawana. But anyways, we always called it Camp Kitschy. So yeah, it's on Beau Salai Island in Georgian Bay. Holy shit, that is actually really far. How did we get there?
did
Yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna ask, did you ever do anything? I had to Google it to make sure I had my shit right, but I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure this is it. And there's another version of it as well. But like, did you guys growing up ever try and like Ouija board spirits or play Bloody Mary or anything like that?
A Bloody Mary, I think, was definitely a thing, but like I think that was like a locker room joke. Even people would like scribble it when it was foggy. But yeah, with Camp Kitschy, because like so just googling this is really fascinating to me now. It's like northwest of Port Severn. So like yeah,
Yeah.
it is right by Honey Harbor. But like that's super far from where I live. So anyways, we take this big bus trip, go over to Camp Kitschy. We were very young. And I don't even remember what grade we would have done this, maybe grade 6 or something like that, or 5. But there was always camp counselors. So it was like literally the perfect Friday the 13th situation where like there was like kids and camp counselors. And then like somewhere, I'm sure there was an adult or two. And so what I think what went on in that situation was like people would pull these like pranks. And honestly, it was probably the camp counselors that were doing it, but like they would like rub sticks on the walls and shit like that and like
Mm.
scratch at the doors in the middle of the night. And it was honestly horrifying because you're on this like random island and they were like, there's bears and there's wolverines and there's like scary shit out here. And so like I think that was definitely a real thing. Definitely some hazing there.
I remember like as a young kid, we'd at least like once or twice at like sleepovers play Bloody Mary. And the version like we were taught was you had to be like lights had to be off in the bathroom, and you like said Bloody Mary and had to spin around, like, and each time you had to look at yourself in the mirror and say Bloody Mary, and like 3 or 4 times, and then she'd appear, and like it was supposed to either be like she'd appear or like it would reveal like your face, but you'd be covered in blood. And um, I definitely never got like psyched up enough to actually see it, but I remember one kid claiming he saw it or whatever. And again, who knows with like maybe it turned out like that kid was in on it or whatever, but it was always those things. But we had like people would talk about at like shack parties and stuff where it'd just be like out in the bush or bush
Yeah.
parties. There was, I forget the exact terminology now, but I want to say it was like either the green witch or the bog witch or something like that. And it was supposed to be this like lady that roamed the swamps and stuff, like the hay swamp and things like that. And I don't even remember like the urban legend now, but it was supposed to be this scary thing. And like it, I think it would always be one of those things where like people would push it on the grade niners at like a bush
Yeah.
party or whatever, and like try and get them to go into the swamp or whatever and
Well,
fuck with
we
them.
had
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough to grow up right around the time of the Blair Witch Project. And I remember my buddy's my good friend's older brother, he and a couple of guys like set out into the woods on, it's called the Black Ash Trail in Collingwood, and it's like literally identical to the type of setting that was in the Blair Witch Project. And they spent weeks, man, creating all those little doodads and like little wooden like dolls and stuff, and like the little symbols that were throughout that movie, and they layered them all over Black Ash Trail, and then took their buddy out, and like they camped out. They went camp and set up tents on the trail, and like they straight up had him 100% convinced that the Blair Witch Project was real, and they pulled some scary shit and like dragged the one friend through the bushes and stuff, and like scared the shit. Yeah, they went all out. He like actually had a nervous breakdown. But I found my candy. This is the worst thing you could ever got as a kid. You're like, get in the hell out of here. And I don't even know, like, I actually don't even know what this is. But whatever it is, it's disgusting. It's basically licorice covered in candy in chocolate. And the list that it's part of, which I was unaware of, was 10 chocolate bars you'll only find in Canada.
Oh,
dude,
I knew most of these. Yeah.
Are Canadian?
Yeah.
What? Caramel is Canadian? Dude,
yeah.
I love caramel, by the way. This shit's
I
great.
did too. That was one of my favorites.
And Wonder Bar is actually too good, man.
Yeah, crispy crunch. So like, you know, like there's the 4 packs of like variety candy. All those are Canadian. So the Smarties, the Coffee Crisp,
really?
the what else was it? There was like, yeah, too. It used to be like there was like a pack and it was essentially just all plus Kit Kats, and Kit Kats were universal.
Oh, like American. This is the one you were thinking about, right? Crunchy?
No.
With the toffee shit in the middle?
No. Let me see if I can find it.
Okay. Also, though, shout out to these goddamn things being disgusting as a kid, but pretty not bad right now. I would definitely eat these right now.
I wouldn't.
No? You don't like chocolate, though. You're a bad test subject here. And even these goddamn things, man. I remember when these came out at the movie theater. We upgraded in our town from Cinema 4, which we've talked about it before in our movie episode, but like literally the flattest row of seats you could ever find in a theater ever. It was perfectly level, so you couldn't see anything if you were not taller than the person in front of you. But when we got a Galaxy, like Cineplex Galaxy or whatever, in Collingwood, dude, they had these goddamn Malteser things, and people went ballistic. They were so good. But yeah, holy, that's wild.
I feel like this is also cap. Like, that's interesting. It couches your screen view, eh?
Oh, cool.
That's
and I can reply if I want to trump yours, I can.
So yeah, we can literally just. But yeah,
dude,
this was all cap in my opinion.
Oh yeah, those are bullshit. I remember that.
Yeah. There's a lot of those where like you can tell the person was just being frugal because you'd buy like a bag for like what you get hundreds of pieces of candy and they're like, oh, this will do.
Yeah, but shout out to the guys making this freaking rubber candy, because they were like somehow able to continue producing that for literally decades with not a single person enjoying it. Like not one.
Mm-hmm. Actually, the one candy that I'd always get super excited because it was a rare find when it came to like Halloween. I'm just remembering this now. And like you can find them in any store, but anyways, I just didn't get access to them a lot. Was like the Swedish berries. Like every now and then you
man.
get those packs of like Swedish berries
Yeah.
or Sour Patch Kids or whatever. And it was like, they were just like the edge case scenarios of candy.
Well, that's when stuff started getting like, I think at that point they had really realized the industry or the market that they could cap on. And so like now Halloween candy is absurd. Like I saw my little sister, because she's like 10 or 12 years younger than me. And when she's out trick or treating, man, she comes back with the craziest shit. Like they have got everything now. It's like it's actually kind of crazy. And like it's so out of hand now, dude. There's like 400 different types of chocolate bars. They're all out there for Halloween. She's coming home with the craziest stuff. But like there's also now she's coming home with like a lot of fruit. And you're like, oh shit, like you're getting swung on by some members of society who are just protesting
And like,
this thing.
don't get me wrong, this is all garbage shit, right? Like this is literally
Yeah.
just like poison that you're giving.
Yeah.
It's like it almost like there's a sense of irony there that like trick or treat originally was like give me something or I'll fuck up your house. And then now it's like people give shit that's going to poison children essentially, to placate the
like,
children that threaten them.
But like I'm certain at this point it's just like 100% a like industrial sabotage, right? Like
Yeah.
it's just
You know what's interesting is like, and I'm sure it's even worse now, but like the supply chain moves so fast. And I was always such like a last minute person when I'd like once you're kind of an adult or you're living at your own house or whatever and you want to give out candy,
yeah.
there was like 1 or 2 years where like I had lady friends that were on top of it, so like there was no way it was going to slip through the cracks. And then there was one year where I was just by myself at Gatewood before I moved to Central, and it was like October 30th it was actually Halloween. And I stopped off after work and I was like, I'll buy some candy. Like I forgot, but whatever. And just there's none there. It literally looked like a post-apocalyptic scene where there's like there's like you see the skids where the candy used to be, and there'd be like a half-torn box open just sitting there sadly. And I was just like, I guess I'm turning my lights off tonight.
Yeah, that was the other thing too. That was always a pretty good thing, eh? The light on or off. That was a cool trick. And just like the shame you would cast at the one neighbor who didn't have their goddamn light on. You're like, you owe me this. And
Well, yeah,
some
and then you're just like, I'm going to
stranger has
pretend
to
that I'm
give you-
not home all night long, right? So you're like, until like midnight, you didn't feel safe turning your lights back on. And
right?
like,
Like
I
shut your
remember
blinds.
when I was in the city, like one of the first Halloweens, there was dudes that looked older than me that came to my house trick or treating, but they were bigger than me, so I gave them candy.
Yeah, you know your
And like,
place.
also, I'm not a small guy, right? So like, these guys were all above 6 feet tall. They're standing a step lower, but like they were actually taller than me.
Damn it. That's a real pain in the ass.
And
But
no
yeah, man.
costumes,
No, okay,
not
no
even a tap,
costume.
but they had bags, so you knew why they were at your door.
Dude, no costume, no candy. Those are the rules.
But yeah, I think that's probably most of my Halloween conversation. I don't know if there's anything else you want to hit upon here, Adam, but I hope everyone has a great Halloween. I guess that's Monday, right? Or is it Tuesday? Monday, yeah.
It's got to be Monday.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so Matt, are we watching a movie tonight? Are we watching They Live Here?
Well, I sent you multiple DMs on Telegram throughout this morning and received no replies, so I assumed we weren't.
Okay.
But yeah, whatever
think?
you want to do. Like I said in my DMs, doesn't matter to me.
All right. Well, I kind of think that we should, because it would be fun for everybody, namely Al, who's probably our only viewer right now that's on.
But I guess couples here, I think we'll have to stream on Rumble only, right? Otherwise, we'll get copyright struck. And two, we need to set a time, and we should probably, like, if we're going to do They Lived, I'm down with that, or pick a different movie, because I don't know how, like, it's a John Carpenter movie, so I assume it's at least like horror adjacent, but I don't actually know if it's defined as a horror movie. Also from 1988.
Well, what could be better than a John Carpenter movie from 1988?
Yeah, I guess it's described as a satirical science fiction action horror film. I mean, you're kind of a cop out there when you say all those words together. Satirical, science fiction, action, horror.
Yeah, I feel like I can't trust you. Or we could watch Nightmare Before Christmas. That would work.
Yeah, I've never seen that movie either. So
What?
no,
What
there's something
did
about it that
you?
just didn't like look good to me as a
Well,
kid.
I mean,
I
it's
just was
not
like,
great,
yeah.
but it is actually
Again,
a
like I know people
fun.
love it. It's a cult film. I'm like, again, haven't actually watched it. So I'm not throwing shade, but I don't know. There's just random movies like as a kid that for whatever reason you get into your head that like, it's not my speed.
You're just a rebel, dude. I've heard this about you several times.
Yeah, just pick random hills to die on.
Well, let us know in the comments. Send us a
Well,
DM.
you'll
Are
need
we
to
going to
set a
do this
time
or
if
not?
we're actually doing this because like there's no way people are just going to stumble upon it.
Well, I know, but it's like I'm still trying to move today.
Well, again, like I said, we don't even need to do this, but or
All
we
right.
could leave it till Monday and just procrastinate.
Hey, Monday's a new day. Well, Monday actually is Halloween, so that might even make more sense. Because then what we could do, Matt, is we could do a watch party of something. Maybe our fans will tell us what we should watch. And
Yeah, that works
then
for me.
what we could do is we could do the live stream and have trick or treaters, right? So we're watching, we're streaming, and we'll have trick or treaters.
Well, I'll let you know. I'm going to get 0 trick or treaters.
You don't know that. You don't know that. Les could come over at any time.
Who's going to drive down like a mile or like a kilometer long road? Like that shit would be scary.
What if you get trick or treaters by boat? What are you gonna do? Are you
Yeah,
prepared for this? Do you have
the
at least an
Navy's not
apple?
ready.
Dude, imagine they drive down your kilometer driveway and you have a goddamn apple.
I kind of just quickly wanted to hit this, Adam. Let's just see what are the scariest movies of all time. This is
I'm telling
according to.
you, the scariest movie of all time is The Orphan. That movie is horrifying. The Exorcist isn't even scary.
I
Grow
think
up.
you have to give it some context,
Like for the
right?
time, maybe.
Yeah. Like, and again, I don't think it wasn't scary, but
What is
it
this?
wasn't like,
Hereditary.
yeah, I've never seen Hereditary. That's a newer movie. A dark family drama about the nature of grief couched with a supernatural horror film.
Jesus.
The Conjuring. I think I've heard of it, but never seen that either.
I've never seen that. I don't really watch a lot of horror films
Yeah.
either.
The Shining.
Yeah, it's a
I've
shit
watched it,
movie.
but a long time ago. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That was, and then the newer version too.
But
Like,
that's the thing about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Again, goes back to those classics where, like, straight up, it was horrifying because it was so realistic. It was like this could easily happen anywhere. Of course, this could happen. And then, like, fuck, man, they did a good job with that one.
about The Ring. Like,
The Ring was horrifying.
it was a cultural phenomenon at the time, and literally, I had a friend that just refused. Like, it became a running joke. Is we'd start to play it, and he would just like rage quit your house, and he would just drive home. Yeah,
Really?
yeah, and like, yeah, I can remember like multiple times us like being like, "Oh, we should watch it," and like, yeah, there was one person in our group that it was like actually their favorite movie, so she always wanted to watch it. Halloween. Never heard of. Insidious. I've heard of it, but I've almost seen none of these.
Insidious was freaky, dude. It was
Insidious?
definitely freaky.
Interesting. All right. Well, you guys can let us know if you've got any movie recce's for us. We'll take under advisement for Monday.
All right. Sounds good. What a hilarious episode. This actually came together better than it should have.
Agree.
So
yes, 100%.
Well, thanks for watching along with us, guys. We'll be back Monday, and Monday is, of course, our business and professional development day. So we'll be back for you. I believe Monday is actually going to be me this time, and that rarely happens on a Monday. It's typically Matt, or at least in the past few weeks, it's been Matt doing that for you. This Monday, I'm actually going to be talking about how to select your real estate investing strategy. So I realize that may not apply to everybody, but for those of you that are interested in real estate investing, I'm going to be talking all about some of the considerations you may want to have when it comes to which strategy should you select. And of course, we will be leaning back on previous episodes. So as a prereq, you should listen to our episode on SMART goals, as well as our episode on the 4 disciplines of execution. That would be a great starting point to set you up for success for that episode on Monday, I guess the 31st.
And this wasn't completely on purpose, but I would even say watching literally every Monday episode before that one, because the other one was about financial independence, right? So like they actually all fit together very nicely in regards to taking you kind of on a journey if you're just new to investing or looking to just sharpen your skill set.
Absolutely, guys. Well, we'll see you Monday. Yeah, we're going to be chatting all about real estate investing, which is something that for once we're actually experts on, or at least we'll claim to be. So have a great weekend, you guys, and we'll see you back Monday. Cheers.
Thanks, guys.
They say life is what you make it. So what happens if you actually try? What if you actually tried to get your mind right? What if you actually tried to live the high life? What if you happen to die, cause life is finite? What if you actually tried to live your best day ever? What if you actually tried to get your mind right? What if you actually tried to live the high life? What if you happen to die, cause life is finite? What if you actually tried to live your best day ever? What if you actually grind out when the time's right? What if you actually blinded by your hindsight? What if you actually find out what defines life? What if you actually tried to live your best day ever? I'm getting 1% better every day. I'm getting 1% better every way. I'm waking up every day to a sunny day. No matter what the weather say, life is like a record, so just let it play.